In this episode of the Orange Nerd Show, we're talking about that Deadpool 3 trailer. We're going to break that down, discuss the overall kind of energy around this film. It's very, very interesting. We're also going to talk about X-Men 97. We're also going to talk about that fantastic four artwork and the casting announcement that was also dropped a few days ago. We have a lot to discuss today on this episode of the Orange Nerd Show. Welcome aboard, everybody, to another episode of the Orange Nerd Show. We're talking a lot of Marvel today. We're talking Deadpool. We're talking X-Men. We're talking Fantastic Four. It's going to be a phenomenal show, a fantastic show here for you guys today. But before we get started, I want to introduce my fantastic panel, the Italiano. I'll start with you. If you could let everybody at home know where they can find you on social media, sir.
Absolutely. You can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Disney George. You could also find me on Instagram under the Disney Italiano. And of course, you'll find me here on my home base at Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info.
There it is. There it is. And down below, Jay Shear is back. Jay Shear, it's always good to have you back, Jay.
It's been way too long. I was telling these guys I picked up a few new clients, and so I have, which is good for my bank account, but it's not good for hanging out on podcasts. So it's been way too long, and I'm stoked to hang out with you guys. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, of course, of course. If you let everybody home know where they can find you on social media.
Yeah, find me over on X at Jay Shear, just my name, easy enough. And then you can also find me on YouTube, not only on the Orange Grove 55 channel, but also on How Stories Work with Jay Shear. Got a couple videos out recently doing deep dive explanations of Sicario. Dune is the latest one I publish on there, so go check that out over on How Stories Work with Jay Shear.
Check it out. And I will be putting one of those videos at the very end on the end screen. So,
oh, cool. Thank you.
I'll put it. Yeah, absolutely. I'll put that at the very end. So make sure at the end of this video, check out How Stories Work with Jay Shear. And last but not least, we got Ebba, the Ebanator. He is back in the house. Michael Ebba, welcome back, sir.
OG, thank you so much again for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here. As always, I'm super excited for today's topics. And you can find me on Instagram, Michael Ebba, just my name. And then also on Twitter/X at Michael Ebba 1991.
There it is. You heard the man. Go ahead and follow him on all his socials. Let's dive in, boys. Now, I can't play the trailer because they'll ding me for it, copyright stuff on YouTube, and but I think most people now have seen this trailer. Interesting stuff. There was kind of this. Well, before I get ahead of myself, I'll start with you, George. I'll kind of go down the row. What were your overall thoughts of the trailer itself? Did you like it, love it, hate it? Where do you stand with this?
I really liked it. I think I don't want to actually say that I absolutely loved it because a lot of times people kind of use movie trailers as the facade where they hype up where it's like, okay, if they absolutely love a trailer, this is going to be, as Kaylee would say, a banger of a film. But sometimes that could be where the expectations fall short. So I kind of like to put myself in the position where it's like I don't absolutely love something until I see the full finished product. But as far as the trailer goes, I'm really hyped for it. For which, I mean, the first two Deadpool movies I absolutely loved. Especially the first one. Yeah. But I love how Disney so far, since acquiring Fox, their approach to Deadpool has not necessarily changed with his slapstick, his antics. I love how Disney still kept that approach with this character because he's basically part of the MCU, but not part of the MCU. He's a standalone type of guy, and I love how they kind of crack jokes at that, where it's like he's just kind of like a freelancer, so to speak. But and then of course by adding Wolverine into the mix, where Hugh Jackman reprises his role, and I love how they're taking a different approach to Wolverine because now this kind of shows in the forefront of the direction that he's in his that classic Wolverine outfit, which tells me that they're going to kind of go moving forward with Marvel. They're going to go more into the past, proceeding into the future, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and you bring up a great point, George, about like how Disney has kind of kept the DNA, so to speak, of Deadpool. Because a lot of fans were worried about that. They were worried that like with Disney owning Fox now, are they going to actually make an R-rated Deadpool movie, or are they going to kind of water it down? Because they want it to be more mainstream, maybe like the MCU films or what have you. I got to say, I was pleasantly surprised that they did keep the energy and the spirit of the other two movies in this one. I mean, they really have, at least from as what we can see. You know what I'm saying? I mean, there was even a pretty vulgar Disney joke in here about, so, I mean, even in the trailer, it was in there. I mean, it's crazy. So it's definitely rated R. You can definitely get that energy. What do you think, Ebba? You liked it, loved it, hated it? Where do you stand, brother?
Oh man, so this trailer, I really, really liked it. It still has that Deadpool vibe you get from the first two movies. The jokes and the breaking the fourth wall, everything that was in the trailer is still like awesome. And also, what I love too was we have the TVA again back in this, right? But it looks like it's a different TVA. So I'm wondering in this movie, or is this going to be a different timeline, like a universe that they're eventually going to cross into the current MCU, and then that's how we get Deadpool, X-Men, Fantastic Four, and all that type of stuff. But yeah, dude, I loved everything I saw. The fight scenes look really cool. And if there is another trailer, I don't want to watch it because I've already liked what I saw here, so I don't want to spoil myself even more. Because sometimes in trailers, right, you'll get that where they will show all the action scenes in the trailer, and then when you watch the movie, like that's all there is. So I don't want to watch any more after this trailer, but I really like what I saw here. So I'm really impressed, and good on Disney for sticking with the R-rated Deadpool.
Yeah, that's one of the big things too. Like with even with ESPN and things like that, right? Like, it's unfair, I think, for these big companies to buy up things and then try to change the thing you bought, right? For example, like when Disney bought ESPN, it would be unfair to sports fans to buy ESPN, being such a big part of the sports community, and then go in there and Disneyfy it. That's not fair to sports fans. Sports fans, aren't necessarily all Disney fans, and they just want their sports. They don't want a Disneyfied version of football or whatever. They want the ESPN that they are used to and what they would expect. So when they bought Fox, I appreciate the fact that they were like, okay, this is what people expect from Deadpool. We're not going to change it. I think that was fantastic. What about you, Jay? What were your thoughts on the trailer? Loved it, liked it, hated it?
Well, first of all, I'm surprised you're not in for 24/7 Mighty Ducks coverage on ESPN.
I know, right, exactly.
Disney used to own them. No,
Yeah.
This is a good trailer. It's also I'm shocked that 6 weeks into 2024, we have a pegging joke on national television on the Super Bowl. Like that was pretty bold. I'm a little surprised that it made it through the what do you call them, the censorship bureau or whatever. But yeah, it looks fun. I mean, I think one of the things we were talking about before the show started is that it's nice to see somebody continuing with a vision that was working prior to the last 4 years, because in the last 4 years, as we've gotten, phase 4 and some of phase 5 now with the MCU, it doesn't feel like the same vision was being carried forward. It feels like there's a lot of different visions. There's a lot of different ideas about what should happen in the MCU. A lot of different creators are getting involved than were involved originally. But this looks like it's coming from the same people with the same kind of ideas and then applying those ideas to the MCU. And the fact that we could be seeing, Deadpool going in and fixing all of the things that went wrong with phase 4 and phase 5 is like a genius concept. Like, let's just make fun of the fact that the last 4 years have not been the best 4 years of Marvel we've ever had. Right. So let's bring in Deadpool, and he's going to make fun of all the stupid things. And then what a great concept for a film. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think Deadpool's never been my favorite character. However, I think Ryan Reynolds loves this character, so it's hard not to get on board with what he's doing with the character.
And you bring up a great point, Jay, where it's like, it's smart. You're absolutely right that they're making fun of the cinematic universe in like the last maybe 4 years, not being the greatest. It's kind of like the Eminem factor. What I mean by the Eminem factor is like when Eminem goes out there and he does his rap battles.
Oh yeah.
He defangs his opponent by kind of like making fun of himself, right?
Yeah.
So when he gets out there, he's like, yeah, I'm a nerdy white guy and I live with my mom and I'm white trash and I'm yada yada. He uses all his opponent's kind of attacks or possible attacks before they can even use them. And it totally defangs the whole thing, and they don't even know what to say. This kind of does that in a way where it's like Marvel's leaning into the fact, like, yeah, man, the last 4 years sucked. It's all good, you know. They're making fun of it, and it kind of defangs the issues that they've been having. I want to ask you guys. I'll start with you, Jay. Like, because you know the She-Hulk series did this whole fourth wall thing too. You know, that obviously wasn't well received. Now, I do understand that that's a whole series that people were able to watch. This is just a trailer. So there is that, to be fair. But this overall seems like it's being much more embraced by the fandom. It's fourth wall as well. You know, they're poking fun at Marvel, things like that. Why do you think, Jay, like, why do you think this is resonating better with fans than like the She-Hulk stuff did when they were kind of doing the same thing? Is it execution? Is it what's going on with this?
Here's my personal take on that. And people can take this for what it's worth. They can disagree with me or agree with me. But here's the difference, okay? Comic books, until what I would call very recently, probably in the early 2000s, this started to change. Comic books were always the realm of nerds, right? Like, it was like, you're going to the comic book store, there's going to be three guys in the corner, like, telling each other they're idiots because they don't like the latest Batman, or they, like, you know, whatever it is. Like, there's a culture around comic books that is, and in that culture is somewhat protective of itself, right? Yeah. Now, in the mid 2000s, as we get like into the kind of the explosion of comic book movies happening, what happened was it brought in this much bigger, broader audience. Here's where I think the difference between Deadpool and She-Hulk comes in, given that culture. Deadpool comes from people who feel like they are a part of that culture, and therefore they're like, we're making fun of ourselves, just like you mentioned Deadpool making fun of itself and making fun of the MCU, but we're also making fun of the people who don't like comic books. We're making us seem like we're cool, even if we're making fun of ourselves. She-Hulk did not feel that way. She-Hulk felt like somebody coming in and going, we're going to make fun of all those comic book nerds that have read comic books their whole lives. And it felt like a lot of the jokes were just off-putting for that reason. It felt like that She-Hulk was made predominantly for people who started liking comic book movies before the comic book experience ever came around. So when you start to do that, when you start to kind of say like we're gonna build up walls of like, these people can like this and these people can't like this, and you're not making fun of yourself in the process, it just doesn't come off right. It doesn't feel like you're bringing me in and drawing me in. It feels like you're pushing me out. Now, I don't think that She-Hulk had the intent of pushing those kind of folks out, but it took some stances on things that I think, if you're going to make fun of an audience group, then you're going to have to be funny. And just She-Hulk's problem at the end of the day, for me, it wasn't any of the, you know, people will complain about the feminist stuff. Like, no, it's not too feminist. Like, I like lots of feminist stuff. It's fine. Yeah. The thing I didn't like was, you said this is supposed to be our funny MCU show, and it's not funny. Like, the one thing you said you were going to be good at, you're not good at it. So therefore, I don't like your show. I don't know what else to tell you. So for those two reasons, I don't think that She-Hulk works all that well. But just to be clear, Deadpool doesn't always work well for me either, because I think that sometimes Deadpool's use of cartoon violence is a little over the top and desensitizing as opposed to funny. And so Deadpool doesn't always work for me, but She-Hulk worked for me a lot less, because at least I knew what I was getting into with Deadpool. I knew it was going to be bloody and gory and have all that ridiculousnness, and it was there. Whereas She-Hulk said, we're going to be funny, and it wasn't there. And so I'm like, okay, whatever.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, the She-Hulk thing, you're right. It's not funny, and it was like, if you're going to poke fun at somebody, like if you're going to poke fun at a buddy, right? Yeah. The execution, the tone, the way you do it matters all the difference between it being a joke and it being an attack on that person.
Yep.
You know, and She-Hulk, since the execution and everything wasn't good, it just looked like they were just attacking fans.
Yep. You
know, and where Deadpool, it's just the execution so much better. Well, so it's like, you know.
Can I give you a perfect example of what you're talking about when it came to She-Hulk? I don't know if you guys all watched She-Hulk. I watched the first 2 episodes, couldn't stand it. Then watched the Daredevil episode just because I love Daredevil. And so
I watched the first 2 minutes and I couldn't finish it, so I put on the Golden Girls.
I watched all of it, unfortunately.
Oh, you watched all of it. Okay, so tell me if you agree with this, Michael. So I tuned in to see Daredevil because Daredevil to me in the Netflix Marvel Daredevil series is my favorite show, my favorite television series of all time. I absolutely love it. Daredevil is riddled with Catholic guilt. He doesn't know what is good or bad. He wants to fight for the good. He doesn't know if what he's doing is crossing a line. When they added Punisher to that, it was magnificent because then you got two worldviews kind of going up against one another. And then they put him in She-Hulk. And they make fun of him by having the male have to make the walk of shame in his Daredevil costume. And I went, hang on a second. The guy is riddled with Catholic guilt. Like, this is not something that's like, he's just like, oh yeah, I just had sex with She-Hulk, so just letting you know I feel shameful about it. Like, this would be like sitting on him as like, did I do something? Did I just totally screw up my life, right? But but they make fun of it. They make it like a big joke. Like, in other words, if you like Daredevil, poking fun at Daredevil because he's not what you think he should be, funny. And I go, that's not really it. Notice Deadpool will make fun of the character for being too much the embodiment of the character. So when you get like the Colossus character, all the jokes about Colossus are you're too much like Colossus, not like you're like somebody else, like you're like some other character. And so it just doesn't know it feels like it just doesn't know its audience in terms of its humor or in terms of how it's going to treat its characters. And so it just doesn't work.
Yeah, well said. What do you think?
Well, see, so and off to She-Hulk, right? Because when She-Hulk aired, right? I mean, now we have the new Daredevil being rewritten, right, and redone.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering because like I was telling you, Jay, I just recently finished the Netflix Daredevil series.
Yes.
It was fantastic, dude. Awesome series. And so I'm wondering, like, okay, at what point? And this is also my problem with She-Hulk and the current MCU. Like, I don't know where everything's supposed to be taking place in. So we're at in Daredevil's life at that moment in She-Hulk. What's happened? What's happening? Right? We don't know. And so now they're kind of going back and scrapping the original Daredevil series and rewriting it. So is that same character trait going to continue on into the new series, or is it going to be more like the Netflix Daredevil that we're getting? So I'm like, yeah, dude, I don't know. I love seeing Daredevil in X. I was like, yes, finally we get a badass character. But then, he slams her and then walks away. I'm like, okay, right? But yeah, She-Hulk, I didn't like the whole attacking the fans jokes they were making. They weren't funny because like there's a difference between making jokes and making fun of something in a tasteful way.
Right.
But then there's something that just feels like you're just attacking your fan base, and I didn't like that.
Yeah, and I feel with Deadpool, it does a good job at like I think the best way I could put it is like She-Hulk feels like it's laughing at you, but Deadpool is more like it's laughing with you.
Yeah,
like everyone's part of the joke. Where like with She-Hulk, it felt like you were saying, Evan, where it's like it's at the fans. It's a little off-putting, the execution isn't there. But what do you think, George?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't like She-Hulk at all. I didn't. I watched the scenes with Daredevil in it. I actually got to see it before it was even released. The Daredevil, I got to see it at the expo because I went to the live action panel.
Oh, cool!
And they said, we have a surprise, character that's coming into She-Hulk. Here's the scenes for it. And here comes Daredevil, and everyone just went ballistic because as soon as he came out on the screen, and then they showed us the full scenes because they were fully shot, and I'm just sitting there, and then it went off, and then the director comes out on the stage, and I'm sitting there, I was like, wow, that fucking sucked, and so because kind of Marvel kind of shot themselves in the foot with that because they ended up pre-screening it to us. So it was almost like a sense of saying, okay, we're going to show you the shit before it actually premieres.
Right.
And it's like, it didn't, you could actually tell by the audience's kind of like their body language and their response after the scene, because when he first came out on the screen, everyone was hooting and hollering after the scenes were over. People were not happy. They
Oh,
were
man.
not happy whatsoever.
It was like a Josh D'Amaro what if segment.
That was yes. That's exactly what it was.
Blue sky, folks.
Exactly.
But
exactly.
I actually have a question for Jay and Michael, because I asked this question to OG when we were on the phone, and I have some theories, some balls to the wall theories,
Ooh.
and one of them he agrees with me, the other one not so much. And big shocker, folks. OG and George disagree on something. Call the fucking National Enquirer.
Wait, hold on. Hold on. I'm calling the police.
But so I actually, and because after the fact, when they said within 24 hours, this trailer got 365 million views.
Yeah.
Now, of course, Disney admitted to the fact that 123 million of that was the views from the Super Bowl ad, which brought it to like 242. But just overall, it was 10 million more than Spider-Man No Way Home. And Spider-Man made, I believe it was almost 900 million just in domestic alone. So, well, my first theory was I personally feel that Deadpool and Wolverine is going to be the top film of 2024 as far as box
Balls
office
to
goes.
the wall, indeed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That's the one where OG was like, he said, I could possibly see that. Now, the one where he kind of disagrees with me on, which he does make a valid point, is I think that this could possibly be the first $1 billion domestic at the box office. And
$1 billion domestic only?
just
Domestic
domestic,
only.
yeah, where it could hit the first $1 billion movie.
Whoa.
Ooh.
So now where OG disagrees with me,
I thought
on
you were
that-
going balls to the wall, but now you just you went balls over the wall, bro. That is a bold prediction.
Where he disagrees with me in the notion is because
Real quick,
of the,
George.
oh,
Real quick before you make your point, I just want to say I do have the numbers though for Spider-Man No Way Home.
Okay.
Is that the one you're talking about?
Spider-Man No Way Home, yeah.
Okay, so I just want to let you know, you're right though. It almost hit $1 billion domestic. It was 814 million domestic, and then it hit $1 billion worldwide. So it was almost a $2 billion movie. I did not know it made that much. So I want to let you know that you're right. It's almost $1 billion domestic. That's crazy. I didn't know it was that much, dude.
Okay, so, yeah, good. So I'm glad you. So where OG kind of more so is iffy on that notion is because of the R rating, where it can kind of subject the younger generation from seeing it. Because I mean, let's face the fact, Deadpool is not a child's movie, not by all means. But I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on it as far as like my theories. Do you agree with me? Where do you guys stand on it?
Let's hear it, Ebba. What do you got?
What do you got, Ebba?
Oh man, put me on the spot, guys.
There it is.
Well, this trailer got a ton of views, right? Like so many views, and of course, you have with the Super Bowl. I mean, I could see both of George's points coming to fruition, definitely. But again, OG, like you said, it's R-rated. Now, that doesn't mean that people probably won't take their kids to go see this thing. Still, I mean,
They might.
they might, and also, of course, you have to think about people who go on repeat watches as well.
Yeah.
So, and here's the other thing too, is that this is a Marvel movie that's going to be coming out that I think is going to be that same quality, like Jay was saying, with that same vision that they had through the entire process. And Phase 4, bro, like we've been lacking that quality throughout this entire multiverse saga thing. And people, here's the thing, I don't believe in superhero fatigue. I believe in crappy, mediocre movie fatigue, right? And if you have something that's a banger, people are going to go see this thing, and people have been waiting for Deadpool 3. So, violent or not, I think we're going to see the numbers skyrocket on this.
And before Jay gives his thoughts on it, I also want to say too, anytime you do what I like to call a crossbreed into a film, such as Spider-Man No Way Home, when you had all three Spider-Men sharing the screen, that's, I think, was a big money draw. Yeah. So when you take Deadpool, who is already successful in the box office, and then you're going to throw in Wolverine,
Yeah.
and it's betrayed by Hugh Jackman, who was basically Wolverine through the entire X-Men cinematic,
Franchise.
franchise,
Yeah.
including his standalone Logan films.
Mm.
It's like, and then you put him in like the 90s cartoon X-Men outfit. I think when you kind of like cross-pollinate that, I think you're looking at box office gold.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's definitely gonna make a lot of money. It's definitely gonna make a lot of money. I wasn't aware that Spider-Man made almost $1 billion domestic. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I think it'll definitely make $1 billion. I'm pretty confident in $1 billion worldwide. I can say that with a lot of confidence. I think we'll get there for sure. I'm just not sure about that domestic though. What do you think, Jay?
Oh, so okay. I'm partial agreement with George, but I'm on Team OG here. And here's my rationale. I looked up the domestic gross of Deadpool 2, and the domestic gross of Deadpool 2 was 318 million, almost 0.5, 318 million 0.5. So it would have to triple that and then do a little bit more than triple to make the billion domestic. Your point about Wolverine being in it is a great point. So I do think it will outperform Deadpool 2 by a factor of at least two. But I don't know if it can hit $1 billion domestic, because in order for it to hit $1 billion domestic, it's the difference between a family of 5 going to see Spider-Man versus a husband and wife or 2 friends going to see it because of the R rating. I do think some people will bring their kids, but like we said, it's not really a kids movie at all. So I just don't think that enough people will bring their kids to push it up over $1 billion domestic. That's my only hesitation is that. If Disney said, hey, look, we want to support the MCU, we're going to do a PG-13 rated version for kids, then I think it would have no problem crossing $1 billion domestic. I think it would be huge if Disney did that. Will Disney do that? Probably not until it hits Disney Plus, because I don't think they want to send the signal of like, we said it was R, but we're also going to release a PG-13. I don't think they'll want to play that game. I think they'll get some fan blowback if they do that. But I think the predictions are bold, George, and I can't wait to see what happens.
Okay, and if I actually can retort to your statement, because
please,
this is fun. Okay, so, now you had mentioned about for Deadpool 2, which it was like, would you say 318?
Yeah,
you said. Okay, now
exactly 318 491 426.
Okay, what year did Deadpool 2 come out in?
That came out in. Is it going to have it on here? I'm on Box Office Mojo, by the way, so it does not list the year.
Which is funny. That's the one I always look to with the box office. Yeah.
Here, I can see on IMDb. I can tell you exactly because it'll be on here.
Let's see. Oh, 2018.
2018.
Okay, 2018. So you're looking at a 6-year difference now with the inflation and everything. As far as like the 2018, I wonder like how it would adjust that if Deadpool was released in today's time, what 318 would look like in today's numbers.
Good question.
And then also too, if you actually look at the first 2 Tom Holland Spider-Man movies, Homecoming and Far From Home, they did very well. I think they actually did around the numbers of Deadpool and Deadpool 2. Like around there, I think like in the 300 million range. But it was No Way Home that actually sparked it, because of the notion of the possibility of having like all the Spider-Men in the Marvel Cinematic Universe up on screen. So it makes me wonder if Deadpool is going to follow that trend.
So just real quick, guys. Sorry. I'm also want to point out the thing too isn't Deadpool 3 the only Marvel movie coming out this year?
I believe so.
Good question.
So because if it is, that might push more people to go see this thing, because it's going to be the only movie for the year.
Yeah, that's a good point. And this movie is big for them, because this could really reset. Not literally reset the MCU, like timeline wise, but I think in terms of like getting
moving
Marvel
forward.
Well, getting Marvel back on track and kind of the enthusiasm train, kind of, right?
Yeah.
I think it might be that reset for the franchise. You know, which would be interesting. I want to ask you guys too before we move on to our next topic, which is X-Men '97. There was a Disney joke in here about Jay. You mentioned it, like the pegging, right?
Right.
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of debate on like Twitter and X and what have you about that. You know, because it's like they're referencing Disney directly in this thing, right? So it's like he's not going after Marvel with the pegging. He's actually saying Disney, right?
Yeah.
Does that cause any, in your opinion, any brand issues for Disney? In your Jay, I'll start with you. Do you think that caused any brand issues for the company, or do you think because of the nature of Deadpool, they make fun of stuff and just kind of?
So here's I would say that there's going to be a certain percentage of the population, let's say, that doesn't understand satire. And they might blow up about it and be like, I can't believe it. This damages the brand. Like, but let's put this in context. The entire point of that joke is constructed. The joke is not funny, by the way. It's not a funny joke if it's like, oh, can't believe that there's pegging and we're on Cinemax. You're like, what? That's like not a funny joke. That just is normal. The whole point of the joke is it's making fun. It's saying, what's something that's really out of line that I could say that Disney would never allow? And therefore, it's funny because it's so over the top. It's not like he said something like, that would have been now brand damaging, in my opinion, would have been, whoa, what, we're gonna have a black Little Mermaid? And it'd be like, whoa. You like, that's actual brand damage. Like, like that was an inclusion step that Disney wanted to take, took the step, you know, Halle Bailey knocked it out of the park. Great stuff. But this was, Disney would never do this. Therefore, that's funny, right? So like, how can it damage the brand if you're basically saying like that it's never something that Disney would allow? Like, so to me, it's like, no, it's not going to damage the brand. I can understand why people might be like nervous about it, but I just feel like it's like and this is what Ryan Reynolds is insanely good at. Ryan Reynolds can make jokes all day long that are crazy offensive, but no one gets offended by them, right? And so he just has that ability. And this was if you're gonna make that joke, you've got to go so balls over the wall, like our friend George. You got to go so far with it that it's like, okay, yeah, that's actually funny. There's no way that's actually true,
right?
And he pulled it off.
Yeah, he did absolutely. What do you think, George? Was that okay for the brand, or you think that it?
I think honestly it was a smart move, and here's why. I think Disney and Marvel kind of had this discussion, especially when it comes to Deadpool, exactly what our worries were for Deadpool. We were wondering, is Deadpool going to, withhold his status of the type of character that we grew to enjoy in the first two films from Disney purchasing Fox? Are they going to kind of Disneyfy it and dilute him in a sense where it's detrimental to the franchise? And I feel like they kind of had to nip it in the bud quickly and draw that attention to the fans that are going to watch this. And more better, we're going to release the trailer during the Super Bowl. There's going to be 100-some million people watching this thing. So it's like, not only do we have to get this movie out, let's solidify the notion that we aren't touching Deadpool. Well, more than he's already been touched, but I mean, like any more than what we know of him. So, like, what better way than for him to actually basically give like a tasteless joke outwardly to the company? Mm-hmm. And I think honestly, Disney was very smart at that, because I don't think they would have released that if they thought anything less. But I think they did that to kind of save their butts, so that any revenue that comes in for Deadpool, it is to basically rubber stamp it to say, okay, people will go see Deadpool because of his vulgar satire, slander type of personality and attitude, that it's not going to be like a a watered down version of him, so to speak.
Yeah, and actually, what worries me more, like that, I agree with you, gentlemen, and I'll go to you about it in just a second. But I agree with you guys. I don't think it damages the brand. I think Jay, you bring up a great point where he's saying that Disney would never do it. So you're actually reinforcing the Disney brand in a weird way, you know. So that was smart. What worries me more, actually, and it's not really related, but it kind of is, I guess, is the Steamboat Willie thing, because that opens the floodgates to people doing the whole shock value thing in a vulgar way with the gory and the horror kind of movies. And a lot of people, you know, they're not tapped in like we are, right? Where like we know it's not a Disney, you know, movie, but a lot of normies don't know that necessarily. They're like, oh gosh, this has Mickey Mouse in it. Like what's going on with Disney? Even though technically it's not a Disney movie, a lot of normies might not realize that. So the Steamboat Willie stuff, if it gets out of hand, that worries me a lot more for like brand damage. And there's not much Disney can really do. I mean, it's tough with that one. But in terms of this, no, I think we're fine. I think we're absolutely fine. I agree with Jay. I think it kind of reinforces that Disney is the family brand, and that's why the joke is actually funny. What do you think, Michael Eben? What are your thoughts on this, brother?
So what I say, it might be kind of controversial, so bear with me. I think in terms of brand damage, I think Disney honestly has already kind of done that to themselves with their own PR and the movies they've been bringing out and the controversies that's been happening within the community, their movies and their shows. So I don't think
look at Ebba out the gate, man, out the
gate. So I don't think you need Deadpool for that. But honestly, you know what though? Going back to the question about like this being a violent movie or Disney watering it down, that's what a lot of people were afraid of, right? Was when Disney got their hands on Star Wars, and then Marvel, they're like, oh man, Disney, they're gonna have this Disney-ish, like Disney 5, the kiddie stuff in all of these movies, right? And of course now with the kind of the bad movies, so to speak, that's been happening in shows, people aren't trusting the quality and the integrity of these IPs that Disney's putting out. Now, personally, I would love to see more type of Deadpool like Marvel movies. Personally, like I would love to see one of Blade, Moon Knight, stuff like even X-Men. I would love to see these type of movies for like the more adult audience. Now, will we get that? I don't know, but I hope personally that this movie kind of opens the pathway for that in the future sometime. Now, I know everybody's not going to want that, but that's what I as a fan want to see personally.
Yeah, interesting.
Well, and keep in mind, the MCU had the first MA-rated show coming from Disney Plus in Echo.
Yeah.
Echo was just MA. So Disney has basically said, I think one of the things that Robert Iger, Mr. Bob Iger, has to be thinking, how do I reclaim what once was? And this is why I think the Deadpool, I was not excited on Deadpool. This is why I think that the Daredevil reboot is now exciting to me. Because when you said, here's one of the best comic book series in the history of television, and then you said, we're not going to touch that anymore. We're going to have the same guy come back and be Daredevil again, but it's going to be a different set of creators. We're going to nerf it beyond belief. Like it's going to be a different thing. And then you showcase that character in She-Hulk in a really stupid way. Then you go, you know what? What are we doing? Why are we messing with magic? Bring back the original cast. Bring back one of the producers that was there before. Why are we trying to reinvent the wheel? Just do just make what was great, right? Like we don't have to redo this. So I think that is actually a good sign to Michael's point. It is a good sign that Disney has said, what are we doing? We had successes, and now we're actually turning those successes into failures. What's the point here? So I totally agree with that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I actually had, real quick before we move on to X-Men 97, I actually had an interesting idea to take the showrunners or the producers for this Netflix Daredevil show and have them do a Gargoyles live action show.
Ooh.
I think that'd be fun because you know what I'm saying, and just lean into like the edge, lean into the adult, kind of tones. I think with that kind of animated show, I think you could definitely get away with that. I think it'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, I agree,
definitely.
Call me, Disney. We'll do brunch.
You could go up to the Frank G. Wells building at the studio, because that's actually where they hold a lot of the Marvel meetings.
Oh, really? I
and
didn't
stuff,
know that.
Because they actually had to change out the windows to be a one-way, because a lot of people were using their drones to fly up to the top to kind of get a sneak peek. So Disney actually had to put like tinted windows where it's only a one way out and no way in, because that's where they hold all their meetings for Marvel.
That's
No way.
wild. That's
I
wild.
could see, by the way, I could see a CNBC segment with Bob Iger, and he's
Oh,
just
God.
like, I met with Orange Grove 55, but he just needs to be more realistic.
Be more realistic. Exactly. Oh man, so true, so true. I still don't get that whole thing with Iger and CNBC. He walks into the Lion's Den every single time. It's crazy.
They've got something on him, dude. They're like, "Do you want us to release these pictures of you with the live action gargoyle people?" Or like, no, I don't want to do that.
They definitely got something on him for sure.
Yeah. It's like putting Daredevil in She-Hulk. That's fine, but that's like a live action gargoyles. That's just fucking ridiculous.
Exactly. Now, gentlemen, I don't know, Eva, you might be. I don't know. Well, maybe you saw. Did you watch the X-Men, the original '97 cartoon when you were younger, or?
Okay, so let me explain. No, and here's why. So I will let everybody here know. I am not a comic book fan. Growing up, I saw some of the superhero movies, but I was never a superhero fan until the MCU. So I'm an MCU fan. So I didn't really watch any of the cartoons, only a couple movies. I wasn't a comic book superhero fan. Just put that out there. So no, I've never seen this.
Interesting. Okay. Well, Disney released this trailer for Marvel Animation's X-Men '97. Brand new episodes of this show from the '90s. Obviously, I can't play it because of copyright issues, but it looks really good. And one of the things I actually like about it is the animation. It was very true to like the old school show. Like they didn't try to like overly modernize this thing where it was like, like too polished with like the CGI. And I mean, it kind of still has that like '90s kind of flair to
like
it.
rough edge of the animation. And I have to actually say, kind of just speaking on the trailer itself, like in the very beginning, I love how Marvel is kind of taking this approach with how it showcases as how it looked in the 90s.
Right.
Like you don't see like it showcasing this on a plasma flat screen TV hanging up on your wall, and it's like they actually have it in like an actual 90s television sitting
Right.
in in like a curio type of thing, where it's like I love how, because that's basically how we all watched this show, because I actually watched this show. It ran from, I believe it was like 92 to 97. And
I have to be honest, and I might have to turn in my Disney card, but I never really got into this show. I was more of a Batman the Animated Series guy myself.
I did watch that too. I did
Did
watch
you?
that. But I love how, like, just the title of this, X-Men 97, they're basically showcasing where the series ended at season 5 in the 90s is basically where it's going to pick up.
Yeah.
Because since it ended in 97, this is now where the timestamp is like basically like time stood still. And it's like it's continuing many years later. I think that was a smart approach on Marvel. And as you mentioned, OG, I love how the animation really doesn't segue away from that 90s style of animation.
Yeah, it feels like they picked up right where it left off, and like there was no time gap at all. And I like that about it. It's true to the original show. What are your overall thoughts on that, Jay? Were you even a fan of the original show?
Oh, huge fan. I can still play the opening intro music in my head at any point in any day. Iconic show. No, I liked the show a lot. I used to watch it all the time. I think maybe the character of Rogue from the cartoon series might have been one of my first crushes, to be honest with you. Like,
wow.
Yeah, because like this would have started airing when I was, in my preteens, so it was perfectly timed to be something that I was going to be into. And I didn't watch as much of the Batman animated series, which is weird because I'm actually a bigger DC fan than I am a Marvel fan, except that I was always into the X-Men for whatever reason, and I love this cartoon. So it's fun to see it rebooted. Animation, like you guys said, looks amazing. Has a 90s feel to it. It's I love to see 2D animation done in this kind of way, because a lot of times when you get into more action-oriented types of content, unless it's anime, they just choose to go 3D with it. So I think it's cool to do a 2D animated style here. Characters look awesome. I have fond memories of the cartoon as a kid. And it was a very 90s cartoon. Like if you go back and watch it now, there's a lot of it's just super cheesy. But me as a 10-year-old or 11-year-old, like I was into it, man. I'm down. This is great.
Yeah, and the trailer was really well done. It captured the spirit of spirit of the character, spirit of the old show. I think it just hit all the right notes. Also, it premiered a new. See if I can find it on here. A new logo too, which I thought was pretty dope. I'm digging that. You know, Marvel animation. I like that a lot, actually. So,
Actually, you know what, OG? I hope that they continue this like type of branch Marvel animation, and we get like these new shows, but they're all like 2D, like 90s animation. I think that'd be pretty cool.
that would be pretty cool. That would be very, very cool. Yeah, it's interesting. We'll see where this takes them. You know, if this is a huge hit, which I think it has the potential to be, so. You know, we'll see where it goes. I think even the other series they did for Disney Plus, the animated show, the What If.
Oh yeah,
I think that one was doing pretty good. I actually really liked. I didn't see the second season.
Oh,
but the first season I really enjoyed. Did you see both seasons, Eva?
I did, yes. And season 2, right? I give it a 8 out of 10. The first like 4-ish, 5 episodes or so. I say by first 4. Yeah, first 4 or 5. They're okay, right? I mean, aside not watch them, no, they're okay. Okay to good. But like the last 4 episodes, man, I really like those, man. Like the action went up, dude, and like you got all the characters there, even some new ones I didn't even know about. And again, you know, I'm not a huge superhero comic book nerd, but I was like, damn, this is really, it got really good. So I really like the ending of season 2.
Yeah, nice. Now,
But
Jay. Go ahead.
Really quick, I just have to say, and with this X-Men 97, I don't want to call it a reboot. I want to say a continuation. I think what it'll do is, if it is as popular as I think it's going to be, especially with the younger boys and like the upcoming generation, I think it'll actually give them a taste to kind of look back at what we used to watch growing up, and it might actually spark their interest to go on Disney Plus and say, you know what, I want to watch it from the very beginning because I want to see like where it led up to this point. So even for us, it'll probably take us back to say, you know what, we got to kind of like dust that off a little bit because it's been how many years since we actually watched it. You know, let's go back and watch it too. So I mean, a lot of the viewer ratings might actually go up for that show.
Yeah, absolutely.
But sorry, Archie, go ahead.
No, you're good. And before you segue into our next topic, Jay mentioned, is it Rogue that you had your first crush on?
Yeah.
Rogue. George or Ebba, do you have any confessions as to any animated?
Yep, I do, bro.
Ebba's like,
yeah. Everyone was like, I thought you'd never ask, man. I thought you'd never ask.
Come on, OG. Okay, so mine was Daphne from Scooby-Doo.
Oh, good taste, my man. Good taste.
Yes.
Yeah. Like I remember one time I was watching, I literally went up to the screen and was like, like that. And dude, I'm like, 5-6 years old, bro.
That's hilarious, man. What about Peg from Goof Troopers? Is that weird because she's like a dog or a cat or whatever? Is that weird?
Oh,
yeah. Oh, gee, you've gone too far. Talk about damaging the Disney brand.
Exactly. What about you, George?
I think for me, I think mine was Jessica Rabbit.
Yeah.
Because I think like that's when it started kind of like sparking like my interest of saying like, what are those? Like what is it? It's like I don't know what it is, but I'm very happy.
She's like the most like she's like honestly like a flawless. You know, I mean, I guess that's what you get when you have a bunch of dudes using their imagination to come up with a sexy woman. You come up with that,
and then of course, like with one of the weasels, like just sticking his hand down in her cleavage, and then he pulls out, and then Bob Hoskins says like, "Nice booby trap." I mean, come on, like that's just
come on.
All right, so can I just say this, guys? I miss these type of jokes with like animation stuff, like nowadays. Sorry, OG, if you want, you can cut this out, but. But like people nowadays, man, they're all bitches, dude. Like put this stuff in the animation, bro. I want to see this, bro. It's like smoking cigars, shooting guns, talking about boobies, right? I want to see all this, bro. Like, come on.
No, you're right. I think people, people have gotten way too extreme with this stuff. Like you're right. Like there's nothing wrong with a good booby joke. You know what I'm saying? It's not hurting anybody. You
Nothing,
know?
nothing wrong with some good boobies.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. 100%.
I think we've officially titled this episode as "Y'all Bitches."
Yeah, exactly. That's perfect.
That's it. Yeah.
That's perfect. That's perfect. Oh man. Now, last and final topic today. This is interesting, right? This kind of came out of nowhere because I think this came out like the day after the big Deadpool thing, right? And so it was like news drop after news drop. But we got some artwork here, kind of confirming the cast for Fantastic Four. So first look of Fantastic Four, starring Pedro Pascal. He was rumored to be in it, so I guess it's confirmed. Joseph Quinn, Eben Moss-Bachrach, and Vanessa Kirby. Jay, what are your thoughts on this cast? I mean, do you see it, or any issues with this, or
no issues with it? So here's okay. So two things. I always feel about casting that I've been proven wrong so many times by being like, this person will never be good at this, right? And then being completely proven wrong about it. I think that nowadays I go into casting thinking, let's just see how it turns out, right? I think that it's actually close to being perfect in the way that I would have done it, which is not to say that it's perfect, but in the way I would have cast it. I love Quinn. I'm probably most excited about his casting as Johnny Storm. Loved him in Stranger Things, and I just love that casting. Like, I don't think you cast that role with Quinn only having seen Stranger Things. Like, he had to have come in and do some pretty amazing auditions for him to get that role. So I can't wait to see what he's going to do with it. The guy who plays the Thing, hilarious. Looking forward to seeing him. He has a great body of work. Kirby, fantastic. Love that casting as well. The only one, as much as I love Pedro Pascal, right. I have not seen Pedro. Two things about Pedro Pascal. One, I have not seen him do anything like what the expectation of this character would be. So what am I saying about that? This character is always portrayed as a very intelligent, put together, like, I'm going to be the ambassador I'm going to have a conversation with the president today, right? Pedro Pascal's never really played that role. We got him in a completely ridiculous role in Wonder Woman 84, which I thought he did well in. It just was not a great movie. We've had him in The Last of Us, where he plays like a kind of like a salty father figure. I think he knocked that out of the park. I think he's great as the Mandalorian. He definitely has range. But if you were saying who would you cast as an intelligent person to have a conversation with the president, this is not the person I would have cast. He's not the person I would have cast first. But that does a disservice to him because he has every right to be capable of doing that. It's just I haven't seen him that way yet. So that's the only one that I would not have cast myself. But I'm looking forward to see what he does with it. But otherwise, I think it's a fantastic cast. I think it's a really cool piece of art. And I think many people are talking about the fact that it's probably a period piece that takes place maybe in the late 60s or early 70s, sometime around there. And I think that would be amazing. I'd love to see that. So
it kind of is giving me, and George, correct me if I'm wrong, or maybe I'm kind of feeling it wrong. I don't know, but it kind of reminds me of the Carousel of Progress. This image for some reason, a little bit,
does.
right?
Yeah,
like the vibe.
It does like have that look, especially with like how Johnny Storm is sitting. Like he's sitting like on the chair, like and he has his arms up and everything. Like, yeah, it does give like that. And even I'm gonna take it one step further. Even like parts of Spaceship Earth, like the parts where it shows you like what your future is going to be like, but they kind of use that 1960s Jetsons kind of like feel to it on the screen. Like that's what it reminds me of. But as I said before, what I find interesting of all the news that Marvel has released thus far with Deadpool, with X-Men 97, and now Fantastic Four, when you have Wolverine in his like traditional, outfit, when you have X-Men returning, that it's like a continuation where it's like it's going to be in 2024, but it's basically putting us back in 97. And then you have the Fantastic Four that's going to be set in the 60s. I feel like Marvel's direction by moving forward is by going into the past. And I think it's a completely different approach than what the Marvel franchise has given us. And we kind of got a little taste of it with WandaVision when they were showing us like the different decades, which that was actually for me the best part of the show
I
of
completely
WandaVision.
agree.
Like when it started going to the end, I
Yeah.
started losing it a little bit.
100%. I thought it was so creative how they did the 50s, the 60s, the 70s. Like it was such a creative premise, and I was intrigued. And then you're right, as it got closer and closer to the end, I was like, it kind of lost me. Because then it became kind of like a typical superhero thing, you know?
Exactly. So if they keep this approach, what they did in the very beginning of WandaVision, but they like stretch it out for the whole entire film, and they do this right, as I said, I think between Deadpool, X-Men, and Fantastic Four, I think this is going to be the direction Marvel needs to go to kind of, I don't want to say rebrand itself, but get out of the slump that it's in, because they are in it right now.
Yeah, and kind of get back to basics. I think even Bob Iger even mentioned as much, but like they've been kind of leaning into these like C and D tier characters now for too long.
Basically, what I like to call the side alley characters.
Right, the side, yeah, and you need some heavy hitters now, and they're doing that with obviously with Fantastic Four, the X-Men, we got Deadpool. Like lean into the biggies, you know what I'm saying? It's okay to dabble in some of these secondary characters, but I think the last few movies and shows have just been leaning into that stuff a little too much. And we got to bring some of the heavy hitters, you know, the mainstays in the Marvel kind of universe, you know, for the normies. Bring those back. Now, Ebba, I'll go to you now. What do you think? But most importantly, do the boobies are they work for you on this?
I mean, you know, like I got a little bit bigger, bro. but hey, you know what? She's blonde, so it's okay.
Well, I have to say, with the 4 like in her chest, if they were any bigger, it would look like greater than 1.
Hey, George, that's all you, bro.
That was good. That was good. So what do you think, Abby? You feeling this? You liking it? Not liking it?
Yeah. So here's the thing. Like I said earlier, right? Is that I'm not really familiar with these like comic book characters. I think I've seen one Fantastic Four movie like years ago. So as long as they, I guess, look like their comic book part, you know, I know like that. I know that sometimes they kind of vary, but if they can play the part well, it's a good story, then yeah, I'm all in. I'm very curious about these time periods, right? Because Deadpool, and then X-Men, and then Fantastic Four. I'm wondering how this is all gonna come to the MCU in our current timeline for the new Avengers movie, right? Like, was it Kane? Was it Avengers: Secret Wars? So I wonder if all of this is going to combine into that one movie, along with our current characters. Now back to the kind of C&D characters you were talking about, OG. Again, I said it before, I'll say it again. I think it was a mistake, personally, to introduce those characters on a Disney Plus show. What you should have done is introduce them into a movie in theaters, and then if you want to have your shows, yeah, you can have like your kind of like side stories for the characters or whatnot. But the thing that Marvel struggles with currently is introducing a story that newcomers can't get into. You have to watch every single piece, movie and TV show to get into the new thing, or else now they're lost. So I think the shows would be great, like if it's like, like a character is kind of, off adventures of what they're doing, right? But it doesn't necessarily have to tie into the MCU movies. Maybe like you have like little Easter eggs or hints that it's connected, right? But not something that's like, oh, this is to that now this newcomer has to watch this movie. So I think by going back into the past, like what George was saying, it's going to be a great kind of fresh restart to then getting back to the present.
Absolutely.
And I think I wonder if they're not even really going to tie it into really anything in that sense. I wonder if that's going to be Marvel's new direction, where everything's not going to be intertwined, where you have to watch this to see that, but you have to watch that first to that second to the fifth power of X equals Y. It's like, like I think I think it's just going to be too much. But really quick to go back as far as the casting goes,
Yeah.
I think just really quick on my opinion, OG, and hold your
Yeah.
thought. With Vanessa Kirby, I feel like with her, she has that type of brand, that type of face that she would actually fit in the 60s. You give her
Right.
like the proper like hairstyle and makeup and what have you, she fits. She's basically a 1960s person, you know. So I think she fits really well for that character. Um, uh, the same with Johnny Storm. Actually, what Jay had mentioned is the same thing that Tones had said to me with the portrayal of the character in Stranger Things. That he said he knocked it out of the ballpark with that. So to kind of bring that character to Johnny Storm is very interesting. Of the casting was well, but I actually have to agree with Jay on that one. It's like as much I think that Pedro Pascal is like the biggest name that was dropped and is playing kind of like the centerpiece of this group, but yet he's the one that I feel has a lot to prove
Mm.
um, as an actor because as Jay had mentioned, we're not really used to kind of seeing him as this kind of like prestige proper, you know,
Mhm.
someone that's going to like
Right.
like a president's gala, like in a suit and tie
Mhm.
type of thing. We're so
Mhm.
used to seeing Pascal like in this kind of rugged, kind of like rough, kind of like edgy type of character. So it's very interesting. It will prove enough that him as an actor himself, you know, if he can pull this off. But he is one that I'm kind of holding back a little bit until I actually see
How he does.
some format of how he performs this character.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. And to your point, George, you mentioned like, Marvel stepping away from like the cinematic universe stuff. Yeah, I don't think they're stepping away completely, but to your point, they did announce a few months ago Marvel Spotlight, which is like a subsidiary studio where there are going to be individual stories being told that aren't connected to the bigger universe.
Mm.
Go
Right.
ahead,
So,
Ed.
and that's what Echo is. If you
Right.
watch Echo, like the beginning, it says the Marvel Spotlight. So it's her own individual like story, but you don't necessarily have to watch it. I think, hopefully, later to understand
Mm.
what's happening with her going down with Kingpin and all that, right? So maybe going forward, that's what they're doing with that show. And if they do, that'd be great. Because like I said, if newcomers come in, they don't have to know every single character's all their backstory and everything that
Right.
happened, right? They come in, enjoy the movie, become a new fan, right? Then if they want to go back and watch the other stuff.
Yeah,
So
exactly. I think you overwhelm people. I think they really should have ended the MCU with Endgame. And then maybe like kind of like reconsidered how they move
Mm.
forward, because I think that you overwhelm people when there's all this material out there that's all interconnected, and then like you were saying, Eva, like if you miss a couple shows, well, now you're not inclined to go watch the movie because like, well, I gotta catch up with my shows first before I can go see the
yeah,
movie. Now you're hurting the box office, right?
right.
It's all this stuff. It's like it's almost it's its own worst enemy in a lot of ways. It's its biggest. Here's the thing. It's one of the biggest success stories for Marvel was the cinematic element of it,
Right.
but it's also its Achilles heel in a lot of ways. Go ahead, George.
Well, and I also think too, and this is something that we all know and is big with Marvel, is the end credit scenes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we all look forward to them, but sometimes it kind of can hurt Marvel in that sense because we've seen many end credits, for instance, like Shang-Chi, you know, and it's like you look at those end credits and it's like, okay, well, we're seeing it in real time, but it's like, okay, now where is this direction going? Because we haven't seen or heard from that character in how many years. So until and then he pops up on the screen out of nowhere, and it's like, oh yeah, that's right about Shang-Chi, and then you have to go back and rewatch the film
Right.
and see that end credit again to say, okay, so that's where it ended. This is where it's going to continue for this. So it's almost like they have this thing where it's like you have to watch the individual films and then you have to watch the cross films, then you have to watch the end credits. And I feel like too where they end up incorporating Marvel characters into other Marvel character films. Like not like the Avengers where you have them all in one movie, but you
Right.
you have like Black Panther making a cameo in this film. You have the Guardians of the Galaxy making a cameo in Thor: Love and Thunder. It's like they're pasting them everywhere, so it almost puts you in a position where you have to kind of cut and paste and say,
Mhm.
okay, I watched this first, but really I should have watched that fourth. And there's just so much going on. It's just
It's too much. But I think you wanted to chime in on when he says Shang-Chi, you
Yeah, so this part of Phase 4 is what drove me crazy, guys. Is we get introduced to these new characters like Shang-Chi was super awesome, right? End credits, watch it. Banger, right? And then all of a sudden, years later, where is the character and where is this story? Like,
Mhm.
why are we doing this to all these movies? We get a new character and we have to wait years later to find out what happens. And then on top of that, everything in this phase feels so disconnected.
yeah.
Mhm.
Like, what are we doing, guys? I don't know. And that's the
Yeah.
very frustrating part because people are like, okay, what are we leading up to? We know we have Kang,
Mhm.
but yeah, we got Loki and then we got Ant-Man. But then what else? Like, I don't know,
Yeah.
guys. I don't have any words to explain my like
which is a shame really because
feelings on this.
which is a shame because actually coming off of Thor Love and Thunder and Doctor Strange's Multiverse of Madness,
Mm.
Shang-Chi was actually a very strong standalone Marvel movie. I feel like
Well,
it was I enjoyed it.
Mhm.
well, and then also George too. Like with Eternals, we had the end credit scene. Where is that gonna go?
Right.
So
Right.
again, it's been all these years we're waiting, and I don't know what's happening, and that's
Yep.
that's really frustrating.
Oh yeah,
Or
it is.
the Multiverse of Madness one. That was the one with Charlize Theron, right?
Oh,
Wasn't that one? Or was that
I
Thor: Love and Thunder?
No, that was Ragnarok.
Ragnarok.
It was. It was all the way
But
back to Ragnarok.
Was it
Oh,
Ragnarok? I thought it
I
was
don't know.
Ragnarok.
Anyways, whatever that was, talk about a character that's like you introduced an actress who's crazy famous, and then crickets. Like you don't hear about
right.
anything. So one of the things that shout out to New Rock Stars, because one of the things that he was surmising, we talked about this a little bit about Deadpool, but circling back to Deadpool, he was thinking that this is going to be Deadpool fixing all of the little errors in the MCU. And one of
Right.
the examples that he gave was like maybe Deadpool is going to go back and figure out which of the Quicksilvers was the real Quicksilver. Like, they're both variants, right? But which one's the one that we're going to continue forward with? He's going to go murder the other one, right? Like, or whatever. And I was thinking, like, I don't know if he said murder, but anyway, I was thinking like that would be a great thing to do too for Deadpool is if he could show up and be like, oh yeah, that Charlize Theron character that they're going to have. She's dead. No one's that's again. That would be pretty awesome because it would cut off all of those like lingering things that the MCU kind of promised and then realized we've gone so far beyond the realm of what we should have gone that we have to actually pull back.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it was I think this guys was kind of like a perfect storm piece where we had Disney Plus come out, right? Now Disney has to make all this content, but then COVID happened, and then we had Bob Chapek, and then okay, make all these like make 12 different projects, and then now Kevin Feige is like spread super thin.
Yep.
And then now we want all these movies and shows, but then now the quality is dropping, and then now the fan base is dropping. Now it's hurting the brand. So it's all these combined factors that I think really put Marvel down in a spiral, and now they need to get this back up. And I hopefully with Deadpool that can happen.
Yeah, I have a lot of and maybe this is me being naive, but I have a lot of confidence with Marvel right now for some reason. I feel like they're riding the ship, and I feel like you said, I feel it's a perfect storm. They have the perfect property right now with Deadpool to kind of get that going here, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Because like Jay said, it's that fourth wall, so they can make fun of the past few years not being so successful, what have you. So you're kind of like easing the tension in the room a little bit with that, right?
Mhm.
And now you can kind of like do not a reboot, but you're sort of it's new beginning, basically.
Yeah.
And I just have to confirm, Jay, you are correct. Is Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness?
Okay, cool.
Oh,
Her
okay.
character is Clea.
I got it.
Oh, was that the one that jumped in that portal with Doctor Strange at the
Yes.
end? And
Yes,
like he had
yes,
that
yes.
fucking
Yeah.
third eye shit right here, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Crazy.
here's a question I have for you guys that we didn't talk about beforehand, but so we only have Deadpool coming out this year, only MCU movie coming out this year,
Right.
but Madam Web sounds absolutely awful. And then you've got a Craven movie coming out. I don't know if that's early 2025 or if it's later this year. Do you think that because there's also a Venom 3 is coming out later this year? Do you think that those films have the potential of damaging the MCU, even if though they're not actually part of the MCU and not Disney films.
I actually do, Jay. I actually do, because here's my thing, and I made this
because
point before.
this is your Spider-Verse.
Yes,
Thanks.
this is my theory with the whole, because a lot of people now see now Ebba, I'm gonna get controversial here, so
let's go.
we're gonna get canceled together, buddy.
All right.
but the whole, like, Disney went woke and they're brainwashing your kids kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And this whole narrative that, like, well, parents aren't taking their kids to Disney movies, right?
Right.
Well, they took their kids to Spider-Verse. And I know everyone's going to say, but OG, that's a Sony movie. And I understand that. But the soccer mom is not in this nerd world like we are. They do not know. They have no idea of the Sony Marvel deal and all that stuff. Like, they see a Spider-Man movie and they're going to take their kids to it. They think it's a Disney movie. Spider-Man is a Disney brand right now. So when people lined up in droves to go see Spider-Verse, most of those normies were assuming it was a Disney movie. Now we obviously know better, but the soccer mom doesn't know. So I think the same can happen in reverse, though. With
the
this,
the soccer moms with the Jessica Rabbit boobs.
Yeah, those, right? Exactly.
No, George. The soccer mom's with you, bro.
Exactly.
I have to pay for the movie tickets.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think the same thing could happen here, Jay. I mean, I think that I think it's Marvel characters, and I think a lot of the normies are not. They're not as versed in this world like we are. So they go and see a Madam Web, and a lot of them probably assume it's a Marvel movie like the rest of them. I got to be honest. Maybe I don't have enough faith in the normies. I don't know, but that's how I kind of feel about it. But what do you guys think?
Well, actually, I was talking to Tones about this. Shout out to Tones with the Bad Thoughts podcast.
Oh yeah.
And he told me the actress Dakota Johnson, she actually ended up, now this is, I don't know like how much of it is or hearsay, but this is what he told me. She ended up releasing like her people because of the fact that they got her this gig. And when she read the script and everything, she said, okay, we got to work on something because this thing is god awful. We had to change all things. And I sat back and I said to him, well, if they worked on it and this is the final product, I could imagine what it was before they worked on it. And it was just to the fact of, and she said a lot of the actors, including her and some other projects, that when they're doing their interviews, they're saying, okay, so I'm part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe now, and Marvel came back and was like, no, you're not. And they said there's a lot of actors that actually exited out of the production before it even started. And again, Dakota Johnson was kind of very disappointed with that because she ended up tweeting out saying, now I'm part of the MCU and what have you. And it's like, there was like a lot of miscommunication there. But again, if an actor who is actually in the film thinks that they're part of the MCU, as OG said, like those soccer moms with the huge knockers, they're not going to know shit.
Yeah, no, I think there's a lot, there is some confusion there. I really do. And the normies go into these things, they don't know half as much as we know with this stuff because we're into it. So we're so into it, and they're just taking their kids. They don't think about it. What do you think, Ebba? You think it could hurt them, like Madam Web? And which I agree with you, Jay. That movie looks absolutely horrendous. It looks really bad.
Somebody showed our buddy Evan, who's been on our show before, been on the Story Geeks with us.
Yes.
Evan posted a clip and is like, I do not believe this is the final edit of the movie. And I'm like, what does he mean? I watched it. I'm like, oh my gosh, they changed camera angles like 3 times of the same character. It was and by the way, Dakota Johnson, but that cast is not bad, by the way. That cast is full of really talented people. I mean, Sydney Sweeney's in there. She's done White Lotus. She's done a bunch of really popular stuff that's really great. Dakota Johnson's done a bunch of great stuff before too. So that's not the cast's fault in any way, shape, or form. All of which, by the way, should be in the MCU. You wish that they were in the MCU. But yeah, it's not going to do well. Let's just put
not at all. What do you think, Evan?
Yeah, I agree with you guys definitely, and you know what? I kind of feel bad for Sony because I feel like they're just getting their butt kicked, dude, with all these
Yeah.
bad movies they're putting out. And at this point, I think that if Disney was able to, if they could just buy the rights to Spider-Man and like the Spider-Man characters in that universe, because I think that would help fix that issue. Now, whether Disney can do a great Spider-Man movie, because I know we have a No Way Home, but that was like Sony and Disney right there.
Right.
But I do think that Disney could do a better job. Well, Disney and Marvel. And also that way it would help to kind of tie in Venom and all the other characters into Tom Holland Spider-Man. Who knows? Maybe they can even do their own. Like I know they're kind of doing it now, but like the whole little Spider-Man multiverse thing, right?
Right.
Um, but yeah, I think Sony's just kind of really messing it up. And here's the thing: my mom wouldn't know which company Spider-Man belongs to. She would have no idea.
Right.
So, like to George's point, if the actors don't even know, their normies aren't going to know, or the soccer moms in George's basement aren't even going to know. So, like, I mean, like,
No, no, you're absolutely correct on that. You're absolutely correct on that.
Sorry, that's where I keep the red leather sofa.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly.
One thing I'll add to what Michael Ebba said is I actually think that Sony has one giant advantage. And this is why I think that Sony's movies might actually be more damaging to the MCU than they are to Sony. And that's because Sony is not trying to be a streaming service. Sony has like the purest business model and is not getting messed with by streaming losses, right? So Sony's still making movies that then get sold. They get sold to other people, right? And Sony's also, I just looked up a production budget. Production budget of Madam Web is pretty reasonable. It's $80 million. A lot of money to pay for something that's probably going to bomb. But keep in mind that if they are able to sell that to a streaming service afterwards, they make money on that end of it too.
True.
So they're keeping their budgets low, and they're not just going to shove that on their own streaming service that people are. No, they're going to sell it to another streaming service. They're going to license it. So I actually think that Sony is playing a game in some intelligent ways. We'll see how it plays out 10 years from now. Maybe I'll look like an idiot because a bunch of these streamers have been
or as Deadpool says that they're going to peg it.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see what happens. But I don't think it's a good look. And I agree with Michael Ebba that if Disney can somehow pull those rights back at some point in time, like it'd be a lot more beneficial to them to do it.
Absolutely, because also there's an incentive for Sony just to churn stuff out. Because from what I understand, they can only keep the Spider-Man rights if they continue to make movies.
That's it.
So they're like kind of like in this mode where they're just pumping stuff out just to keep the rights, and it's like the quality isn't there because they're not really. Yeah, it's tough. It's really tough. Yeah, hopefully they can get those rights back, but we'll see.
They have a Craven movie coming out. Like you go to the average person and be like, "Who's Craven?" They're like, "What are you talking about? I have no idea who Craven is," and they're coming out with a movie for him.
Hey, dude, that was me. I heard Craven was a Craven. I was like, "Who the hell is that?" Yeah, I'm not into like the superhero stuff. Growing up, so I didn't know. And then now having played like the Spider-Man 2 game and stuff like that, and seeing the backstory on this. Okay, now I know. But I was a normie for this. I was like, who's that?
Exactly.
Yeah. Exactly. It's crazy. It's crazy.
And it's like, if someone even asked me the same question, it's like, who's Craven? And I stopped and I'm like, who's Craven? I'm like, oh, you mean the movie? Okay, sorry. That.
It's funny. Well, gentlemen, it's always an honor with you guys, talking shop with you fellas. It was a lot of fun today talking Deadpool, Fantastic Four, X-Men, all that good stuff. So thank you so much for joining today. I'll start with you, the Italiano. Where can they find you on social media, sir?
You can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Disney George. You could also find me on Instagram under the Disney Italiano. And, of course, you'll find me here on my home base at Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info.
There you go. And Emma, you kind of give off a Spider-Man vibe though. Like, I could see him like he's chilling with the OG crew, and then like at night he's like in the city like fighting crime. Like, you're Spider-Man, yeah,
dude. Dude, what's funny? It's like that. I've been told I look like Harry Potter. I've been told I look like Tobey Maguire. I'm like, oh cool, so I'm a Spider-Man. All right.
You're Spider-Man, bro.
I can say you could definitely pull off a Peter Parker.
He could, right?
You really could,
Yeah.
you know, like with the glasses, and then it's like in day you're Peter Parker, and then the glasses come off at night, and you're just
like
swinging webs.
There it is. I've never seen Spider-Man and Ebba in the same room at the same time, so that'll tell you something right there, you know.
So does that mean we got to? Does that mean we got to change his name to Michael Webber?
Oh,
Hey!
There you go.
Yeah, I like that.
Exactly. So Ebba, where can they find you on social media, sir?
Yes, sir. Well, OG, thank you so much for having me on. It was great talking shop with all you gentlemen, as always. You can find me on Instagram, I'm Michael Ebba, and on Twitter at Michael Ebba 1991.
There it is. There it is. And last but certainly not least, Jay Shear, host of Story Geeks and How Stories Works, and your short film. If you want to give us an update on that as well.
Oh, I wish I had an update. So it's still in post production, and I'm still I'm waiting for my buddy to get back to me. He had a death in the family, super tragic, and so I'm just holding off. I'm not bugging him. He's working on it. It'll get done. And it's actually been that has been actually a little bit. I would never say it. I would prefer that not to have happened, obviously. But the delay in production has been okay for me because my long COVID has been flaring up and down. And so if it had been ready when they said it was going to be ready, I would probably not have the energy to get after it. So hopefully, I'm hopeful that it'll come out in like March or April, but we'll see. I have yet to talk and get an update on the short film. Cannot wait to see it. It's I think it's going to be really, really cool. So we'll see where it goes. But yeah, you can find me on X at JShear. You can also find me on Instagram at JShear if you want to follow me on Instagram. I don't really post on Instagram, so I send these guys ridiculous Disney things every once in a while. And then you can also find me here on the OG 55 channel with the Story Geeks. We have a show coming up. George has another idea to do a show about Ninja Turtles Secret of the Ooze. So we're going to do a show on that. We're just we got a really good guest coming up. I have a couple friends who have made it into the movie commentary world, and this is one of those people that I went to college with. And it's always really fun to see somebody who's like, you know, he worked for GameSpot and he's done a lot of really cool jobs. So it's fun to see. It'd be fun to have him on the show to talk about Ninja Turtle Secret of the Ooze, a George pick. I watched it and I was like, George, you got to host this, man, because I don't know. This is not my favorite movie. I'm gonna come. I'm gonna show up. We're gonna talk about it, and I'm not gonna bring anybody's high down. Because how can your high go down when you have Vanilla Ice make an appearance in the film?
Well, and I love your approach to it, because how you asked me was like, you said, do you want to host it since it was your idea, or do you want me to? And I said, well, it's up to you. And it's like, I'm thinking, okay, he's just kind of shooting out ideas, and he's like, yeah, I'm not really feeling it, so why don't you try it?
I loved it. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, it was so funny. I was like, I don't know how hyped I am about this movie. I know George is super hyped about this movie, and I know that he'll like have a really good discussion points where I'm going to be like, what does this say about the quality of movies in the 90s versus the quality of movies? I'm like, this is way too intense. I'm just going to give it to George. He's going to.
There you go. Yeah, George, you're a big fan of this movie, right, George?
I do. Like it was either, I think it was Slimer that posted the meme. And it was like the let's do it, you know, and it was like the Ninja Turtles, and I was like, I got like real giddy as a schoolgirl with a My Little Pony backpack. It was like, it was like, cause it just like took me back, because that was like one of the main movies I watched in the 90s, and it screams 90s, like with the movie soundtrack and everything. And it was actually, I mean, I know I'm diving deep, I can cover this on the show, but it was like the movie actually paid tribute to Jim Henson, because it was the first movie that was released after his death. So,
and that's what I love about that, and we'll talk about it, you know, for sure. But I won't give away too much. But I love that era though of filmmaking in the 80s and like that early 90s when it was like that pre-CGI thing.
Oh,
you
totally.
know. The Ninja Turtles had like animatronic faces and stuff. It just added a level of magic to it, you know? I don't know.
By the way, just here's a fun fact. In the lookbook that I created for who could be in No Vacancy and be like a starring person in No Vacancy, the actress who plays April O'Neil, Paige Turco, I believe her name is.
Correct.
I had her up there as a potential for Lee
No
Larson.
shit.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it was fun to watch. When I watched the movie, I was like, oh yeah, that's right, there she is. Now she's much older in the movie that we have, right? This is like her as a younger person, and she would have been like whatever she is, 20 years older. 30
Which
years
another
older.
fun fact, she also played the aunt to Madison Pettis in The Game Plan with The Rock.
Oh, no way. That's cool. Yeah, but also you can find me now for the movies that don't make it onto the Story Geek show, which are kind of the more like, for some reason, ever since 2024 started, I've been into like super intense movies. So I've watched The Killer on Netflix. I've watched Sicario. I just finished watching Dune. That kind of stuff I'm putting over on my channel, How Stories Work with Jay Shearer, just going through in detail and explaining everything. So if you want to check out some of that stuff, you can head over there as well. And but otherwise, stay tuned because we're gonna have a Story Geek show before you know it on Secret of the Ooze.
Secret of the Ooze. I watched Sicario a long time. It's been years.
Yeah.
I gotta rewatch it. I just remember loving that movie.
It's great.
You
It's so
really want to
intense.
see. You really want to see like a really intense movie. Is Troop Beverly Hills? Because have you ever seen Shelley Long's hair?
Yeah, exactly.
It's out of control.
Hey Jay, get ready, man. He's gonna be like, Jay, I got a Story Geeks idea.
Yeah. You think about Troop Beverly Hills. Okay.
There it is.
You want to host it, George?
There we go. Oh man. Well, thank you all so much for watching this episode of the Orange Nerd Show. Comment down below with all your thoughts on everything we discussed today: Deadpool, Wolverine, X-Men, Fantastic Four, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, all that good stuff. Ninja Turtles, Secret of the Ooze, whatever you want to talk about in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. OG55.
세상이 누구에게나 공평하게 추악해.